Hello, hello everybody. I should be live right now. We're still on the lowest possible latency, so it will take me a while for you guys to see, I think. But if you can hear me, please let me know so that we can start. It's gonna be a normal feedback stream as always. I need to click some of these things here. Here. Davey, welcome. There's some messages in Discord that I need to get back to. Tom Zool, welcome. How are you doing? Yes, so I can see you guys. Hopefully you're here. Everything should start up right now. And we can get started. So as always, you guys can post your music in this chat right here, feedback on stream. Make sure that it is this chat and not any of the other chats here, not here, just here. So this is the one that we're using. Keep that in mind. And we're going to be listening to some music. I'm going to start off with the Dead Fella one, and we'll work our way down. This one was submitted earlier in the week, so we have to catch up on that. And then we'll just continue from there. At any point, if there's any patrons that submit some music, you guys will get priority. That's one of the new things that I've been doing, and that works. So, yeah, that's how it's gonna go. Anyway, we're going to start with Dead Fella's track Plasma.mp3, and volume is all correct. Let me check my master volume. That's a little bit loud. I want to turn that down a bit because sometimes these things are mastered and I don't want to blow my ears out. Yeah, here's Plasma. This might not be Psytrance. BPM is a bit low, I think. Maybe some Sybient. Hello, Tesla. More Sybient, yeah. I like it. The kick and bass needs to be cleaned. Keep that in mind. What I would also recommend is low cutting both your kick and your bass. Klaus and FG. Carapana, welcome. It's a bit muddy in the mid-range right now, like this area here. I don't know if this is already mixed or not, but that's something to keep into account. I like this bass line a lot more. This sounds a lot cleaner already. There's two asset lines playing right now. I think this is a little bit too busy. Who am I? Welcome. Yeah, you can hear the kind of weird clicking that you get if you don't low cut your kick and bass. You get those really strange, really high clicks here. Why does the kick alternate in the high frequencies though? Maybe you didn't resample yet? Here you can hear all of the low rumble that is happening. Now the track is a lot less defined. Do you know what I mean? MinXC, how are you doing? Very interesting track, not boring. I do agree that it's not boring. I think it's a little bit too full. Production-wise, I think there's too many ideas going on at the same time. Like the vocal doesn't shine through in this area here. There's multiple asset line things happening. There's even other sequences on top of that as well. So it's not really clear what you want me to listen to exactly. Like this is okay when the kick and bass is not playing, right? You have a few elements more, some backing elements, but it felt like before that all the elements were trying to be in your face. I did like the beginning, yeah, it's a very nice intro. I think one of the things that is happening that I heard here towards the end is that your delays are fairly mono. I use two types of delay, right? It's either the echo, and whenever I use the echo, I always use ping pong mode. There's very rare exceptions where I just go into stereo mode. So ping pong, it's going to go left ear, right ear, left ear, right ear. So that's very stereo. The other one, if I do want a more like centered, a more centered delay, what I'll do is I'll use Echo Boy Jr. here, and this has a mode which is called wide mode. So this is taking your delay and it just turns it very stereo. Maybe this is an option for you if you do want that kind of centered delay. It's not going to alternate between the left and the right ear, but it's still going to be very stereo, so it will be out of the way of the main element, basically, because that's, you don't really want the delay of the element fighting with the element itself. It just needs to be an addition to it, right? An extra detail. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I think I should mention is the lack of fills in your track. It felt that the transition is kind of happened at random, and the reason for that is there wasn't really a fill that allowed you to make the actual transition. It felt like the kick and bass was just kind of continuing the whole way, and there were I think there were like a couple of snares, maybe a couple of kick fills, but very little space. What I would recommend usually when you're really transitioning between elements is to use at least a bar of fill space where you just completely remove the kick and bass and maybe add some drums, maybe add some other things into it that announces the fact that it's a fill, and there you stop one element and the other element kind of comes in. Either it comes in immediately before the drum starts to play, right? Before the kick and bass starts to play again for the next section, or it starts with the kick and bass of that next section, something like that. So hopefully that helps with the production. I think you're maybe overproducing this track, but I do like, as I said, the sound design. There are some ideas. The intro, I really liked it. I like the what currently is the outro. I think something like the vocals that you have in there, they can take much more front stage in the production, right? So you would remove some elements so that you have more space for the vocals to come through. Next up, do we have a patron? Not yet. We have Tesla with DAC. D-A-C-K by Tesla. Let's see. I would recommend making the kick not so loud here. What that's going to do is it's going to give the kick more impact when it actually plays in the drop. Also, your bass line is very short and a little bit quiet. It is nice and clean because... Wait, what's happening here? Why is there like a very little bit of bass line left there? I would just make this into an offbeat bass line and make it slightly longer. Synths are a little bit on the loud side. You can see them overpowering the waveform. Maybe turn them down like 2-3 dB. As I said, kick can be a little bit louder. Or not the kick, the bass line. Cool little effect there. I like your sound design. A little bit of stereo spreading on the bassline could also be nice here, especially because you're going for a little bit more of a progressive idea, I think. A little bit more of a progressive track. Okay, it is nice and clean. I like that. Nothing more to say there. I don't like what you're doing with the offbeat hi-hat, where it's not always on the offbeat. It feels like it's like stuttering or something like that. What I would do is I would here make this one significantly louder than this one, so you still have your offbeat be the strongest one. Vocals like this should have a more stereo component. Your closed hats are very quiet. And as I said, the synths feel a little bit on the loud side, like maybe 2-3 dB, they could be turned down. That's very dirty there. I would clean that up. It's having the kick in here, I think it's not a good idea because it gives the track a rhythm here and it distracts from the vocals, like it doesn't line up with the vocals. Do you know what I mean? I'd much rather just go for not having a kick there because you're not going to dance to that part anyway, so you don't really need it. Sound design is very cool here. I might go back on the baseline loudness here. It's a bit quiet, but not problematically quiet here. I think the bigger problem is just the synths overpowering everything. Like here, it's just way too loud. The fill should be quieter than the rest, because then it gives the drop more impact when the drop starts playing again. Maddie, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. I like your fills though, like the one that you just did there is very good. The snare is a bit strange, it's a bit weak, it doesn't really have that to it. Right now you can barely hear it. I like this transition. Again though, if you're gonna do offbeat bassline, I would make it longer. Like, you don't have to fill up the entire space if you don't want to, if you want a little bit of that grooviness. But now you're missing so much energy by the fact that there's just nothing here in terms of bass. Hello Shadow Rage. Snare needs sharpness. I do agree, yes. It's barely audible. And really the snare should be, just like the hat, it should have like a big noise component, right? It's the same with the closed hats. The closed hats don't really come through, so they don't contribute to the groove. I actually have a video that I already edited and is gonna come up soon, hopefully, about groove theory, and that will explain what all of the components are for in regards to actually like dancing to the beat. And I think that's really important because we often tend to forget what the drums really are for. Like, we know that there's supposed to be drums in there, and that they're supposed to be like in their own little pocket of high frequencies, because that's where they have the most space, right? One of the reasons why you don't hear the snare, by the way, is because of the loudness of the synths. So that's one of the things that is probably the most problematic in the track, is just the synths being so loud. Like, they're overpowering a little bit the kick and bass, but they're also overpowering massively the snare. So it exaggerates the problem that you already have with the fact that the snare is just not the best. You must be familiar with the trance musician BT. No. No. I don't know, unfortunately. Like, as I said, I listen to psytrance, not trance, just psytrance. I don't listen to a lot of music in general, and even if I listen to music, it's just my playlist. Like, if you want to know what music I listen to, you can just go to my psychedelic favorites playlist, which should be somewhere on my Discord, I think. Can I take this opportunity to ask you who your main influences are in psytrance? Yes, of course. My biggest influence is probably Asterix, followed closely by Outsiders. But really, generally, like, my playlist, I listen to this all the time. So I can just scroll through this playlist. You can pause it at any time that you want, wherever you want. I think there are links for this playlist somewhere in my Discord. If not, let me know and I'll put it there. Are those just initials, or that the full name? Oh, for the Shadow Rage question, maybe. Thanks for the feedback. I know what to do from this point. You're welcome. I'm glad that's helpful. Let's see, we have some more submissions. And Pete, welcome, by the way, to the stream. Say, also welcome. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Anybody else that just joined? I don't think so. Okay, so the next track is work in progress, the internet. The internet 148 BPM, looking for feedback, thanks. Oh, the track is called The Internet. Okay, so this is Tom Zul with The Internet 146 BPM. Let's go. I'm expecting a dial-up modem sound in the intro. It's not there yet, but there's already some very cool textures. A little bit on the wide side. Way too delayed, way too stereo here. The vocal, you cannot understand what the vocal is saying because of the massive delay and the fact that it doesn't poke through the high frequencies. Like you're not leaving space in the other sounds. The kick is clean. I think this is cleaned up. It's hard to tell because there's other things playing right now, so I'm gonna assume that you cleaned your kick and bass, that you resampled and cleaned it up and didn't use any filters after that. Yes, that's the Indian. Okay, perfect. I think the kick is lacking a little bit around 100 Hz, like that punchy area. Also, I don't think that the high... how would I say? Yeah, the hi-hat is too long on the offbeats. Okay, here the hi-hats just suddenly become faster. You would do that in the fill, you would do that in the beginning when you added this hat. Even here the vocal was really hard to understand. If you're gonna add a vocal, make sure that you understand what the vocal is saying. Right now the vocal isn't doing anything. It doesn't have the space to come through. Will you review future prog tracks? Yes. I'll review anything. Did I finish the high-tech dubstep track? No. We left it off where it was and I'm going to only work on that one on stream from now on and then edit the stream down into videos. I actually changed my whole microphone setup. Is the audio better, by the way? It should be a lot cleaner than it was the last stream. I also moved like the microphone more in front of me. How do I submit? I would love some feedback. Exclamation point feedback. And you will be guided to the right place. I think the way that I could describe this mix the best is that it's very pressured. I know it's still a work in progress, so maybe you need to do some more mixing. But I feel like there's always like delays and stuff like that happening that really take away from what we're supposed to be listening to. Like, the track just sounds like there's this constant noise playing, and that's, I think, the reverbs, the delays. Maybe there's some atmospheres playing continuously as well. Like right here, it sounds a lot better. It sounds like you're relieving the pressure, but when your kick and bass is playing, for whatever reason, everything feels pressured. I think what's happening is that you have an atmosphere in there and it's just way too loud. It doesn't allow your main elements to come through at all. Here again, the vocals, you cannot understand them. In this case, I would just remove the vocals, because there's no way you're going to get vocals to stand out enough from this part of the track that you're going to be able to understand what they're saying. I think one of the reasons why this track feels a little bit, or it feels so pressured, is because a lot of the energy that should be around 100 Hz, especially in the kick, introducing that punch in the kick, is like placed in the very lowest frequency, so it kind of pushes it down a bit more, and that feels very heavy on the like pressure part. So you review any genre, everything. I've made the joke multiple times, like, you can fart into a microphone and I'll happily listen to it and look at it on the analyzers and point out where the fart could be improved. I think I said quite a lot about this track. When it comes to positive stuff, I do like the idea. I like that you're attempting to do a lot of theming in there. I liked the fact that there was the like little phone effect that was playing in the break. Here you concentrate mostly on mixing EQ and bass. Yes, because the idea I'd like. When it comes to my feedback, when I'm sitting here, what I don't want to do is I don't want to be continuously talking, saying things that don't really matter. Like, oh, I like this synth, oh, I like that sound, oh, I like how you're doing this, right? All of that is pretty useless in actually giving you things to improve on. Like, they're not improvements, right? You can learn a little bit from it in the sense that, oh, if I do it the same way, I'll maybe get the same result again. But I like to point out, as harsh as it seems, but only the negative things, so that whenever I don't have anything to say about it, you guys can just listen to the track without me speaking. Was basically big reverbed and delayed farts. I don't know what you mean. Unfortunately, with the current latency setting, I'm gonna try to experiment with the other latency setting again. I didn't do it today because I did not have enough time. Maybe after the stream I'll do a little unlisted test stream just to check the latency and to see if there's any issues. But when it comes to conversations like this, Mary, I don't really understand what you're saying because there is such a big latency. So you might be talking about something that is happening in the stream, which happened a minute ago, because that's how big the latency is right now. And we had to do that because we had connection issues, I would say about a month ago now. And it hasn't happened since, but if I can go back to a lower latency, that would be very, very nice. Next track. Let's see, are there patrons? Nope. Okay. Next tune is a tune in final production phases. Still needs to develop the intros. It's the first electronic composition I intend to finish. Chili version 2 by Max Hiax. I don't know how to pronounce the latter part, so I'm just going to call you Max. In the chat, I'm exporting my track. Nice. So you'll review how those farts are mixed and not where they come from. I'll review anything. Anything that I can say about the farts, I'll review it. One time this is going to backfire massively and somebody's actually going to do it. I know for a fact that this is going to happen at some point. But I like to make the joke that this is how I handle things. Like in terms of music, I'll listen to any form of music. Everything that you guys want me to listen to, I'll just listen to it. The only catch to that is that you cannot include any copyrighted material that you don't own. For obvious reasons, like I don't want to get sued, I don't want to get copyright claimed and all of that stuff. It already is a massive deal to deal with that, even when I give these precautions. For the people that don't know, if you submit here, read before posting obviously, but by submitting here, it tells you like you have to have I get full permission to play it on YouTube. Do not submit works you don't fully own the copyright to. So that means remixes and bootlegs and stuff like that. Unless it's an official remix and you have permission from the original artist for me to play it on the stream, yada yada yada. It's better to send in what format, brother? I prefer WAV files if you have them. MP3 is also fine. The only thing that I would say, please don't use WeTransfer because I have to download it before I can play it, which is annoying. But other than that, anything will do. Okay, so Max with Chili version 2.mp3. It does sound like a Psytrance kick with the amount of punch that this has. So I'm assuming this is going to go into Psytrance. If not, I would change out the kick. Something a little bit less punchy, as the rest of the track doesn't really seem to have that punch. Okay, when you're playing kicks so close together, what will happen is that one kick is bleeding into the transient of the next. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you fade out this kick before this kick plays. Pretty sure you could make cool bass samples from fart samples. Cool basses from fart samples. I mean, some dubstep basses, you could definitely make that. Does anyone own copyright to farting? If you record the fart yourself, you own the copyright on that fart. I think, yeah, this is more meant as just like a chill out track. In that case, I would say that the kick is too punchy for the production. I don't even think that you need this much bass for it, especially because your bass line itself is actually fairly quiet and fairly in the back, which is okay for this kind of music, right? You could even go with not having a kick whatsoever. Like, this isn't supposed to be dance music as the way that I'm listening to it. I like this. Getting another bass line involved. Yeah, now it makes a little bit more sense. Here the kick makes sense, but before it didn't make sense. If you really want this to have a little bit more impact, what you could even do is not have the kicks up until this point. Up until this part plays. You would need to clean this up. Let's see if we can find a good example here. Your bass line is bleeding into the next bass note here. And the bass line is bleeding into the kick here. So what you want to do is you want to resample this bass line so that you can take individual notes, fade them out, make sure that they don't overlap with whatever is playing next, so that you get this more staccato feeling, and that will give everything a lot more punch. I like this. That bass sound there is a little bit wonky. But overall, the sound design is very cool. The way that the cymbals and stuff are playing suggests to me that you're a drummer with the amount of crashes and stuff that you're using. What I would say, if you want to add more groove, I would experiment with some high frequencies and specifically hats and a snare on every other beat for the kick, right? That tends to be like the standard groove. So you would have an offbeat hi-hat, usually like an open hi-hat. It felt like that was lacking a little bit. Maybe I just missed it completely because it was very quiet, but... Okay, so there are some closed hats. I can't tell if that's a snare that I'm hearing or a crash. It doesn't have a lot of high frequencies here, so that's what is missing, I think. I think there's an open hat. I heard that fairly quietly. And I think what I was hearing was a snare on the right spaces, but it was like very reverberated and very in the background. In this case, because you're going for such a slow, groovy track, what I would recommend is maybe even a clap. Something like this. I think maybe here. No. Yeah, something like this, right? Just like a very natural kind of clap. Other than that, you can go with the standard psytrance snare sound, and that would sound something like this. You see a lot of high frequency stuff here. It's around 10K that the snare exists, mainly. And you can go for whatever type or sound that you want. Tekon, welcome. How are you doing? Virtual Instinct, welcome to the stream. Maxime, thanks for the advice. You're welcome. I'm glad it's useful. My main instrument is actually the guitar. It sounded like you're using a lot of crashes, and you often hear that in people who play drums for a living or that have experience with the drums. Because when you're normally drumming, you tend to use crashes quite a bit, whereas in psytrance and moreover like dance music, a crash is really used to emphasize the start of a section, kind of like a downlifter. Right, so let's say that, just to illustrate that, let's say that this is your structure. You're gonna have some kind of intro, maybe like 32 bars. And then you'll have your first drop, which is gonna be like 16 bars, of which the last bar is gonna be a fill. What you would do is maybe have a structure like this. Probably not for the first few, maybe not for the first two, but from like the part where it's really high energy and you want to have that splash into the sound where everything is supposed to, have full power. You're gonna have your crash here, and then maybe for the next one you'll do something like double it up, but you don't often hear more crashes like that. And the reason for that is this is like a very big splash of high frequencies. And what is much better if you want to use the higher frequencies, which you definitely should, I feel like your track, as I said, is lacking a little bit, is using some closed hats, some open hats, and as I said, some snare or clap or stuff like that, because that adds groove, that adds rhythm, as opposed to just a splash, which adds excitement to a part. They have like a different functionality, if you want to say it like that. Okay. It's down tempo, so please ignore if it doesn't fit the format. I'll listen. As I said, I'll listen to anything, so it's perfect. Kev Human, welcome. Anybody else that just joined? My nickname was Kevlar. I'll start naming you Kevlar from this point, if I don't forget. Next up is Hristro. I'm really sorry if I mispronounced your name, but the HR is not something that happens in Dutch, so I have no idea how to pronounce it. But anyway, this is Learning Project. That's the artist name, with 2 full 192 BPM D sharp. Let's see. Okay, very full here in terms of the things happening. Very strange click there. I don't like what's happening to this kick. This kick and bass is already a lot better. It is very bass heavy though, so maybe remove some of the sub bass here. Not a fan of your snare that you're using. It feels a little bit long. I do like the way that you're sequencing here. I've talked to you before about how you're sequencing stuff, and this feels a lot better. Although I don't like this last sound that we are just listening to now. The first half of this drop was definitely a lot better. I think the impact is a bit too loud. It sounds very explosive, almost distorted. This track has that same pressured feeling to it that we heard in I think the second track that we listened to. In this case, everything feels very snappy with the drums that you are using, maybe a little bit too clicky. But the whole production, it feels like, it's like it's pushing against me way too hard. Do a challenge stream where you only accept part-based tracks. I need to make some onion soup then, if I want to enter in my own challenge stream. I like the sequencing in here. This is very well done. I haven't done a challenge stream in a while, yes. There wasn't a lot of people that actually liked doing them. Like, we had 10 participants in the first challenge stream that I did, and by the end we had like 3 of them. So it was barely worth it. There's something strange happening with the volume sometimes of some of your synths. I think you had the same issue with some earlier products where it happened on the whole master, but here it's happening with that synth that you have there, in that it kind of ducks in volume. Here the sequencing starts to fall apart again. Like it feels a little bit too nonsensical. What I think that you're doing here is that you're overdoing the sound design a little bit. Verify something here. It feels like this square sound is offbeat, but that's because you're playing the higher octave on the weaker beats, right? So this is the higher octave here, this one and this one. I would place this and this on the kick and the offbeat, because that's the one that you hear the most, so you want that to line up with the actual rhythm of the track, which is the kick. Unfortunately, Klaus, with the delay, I cannot tell you which part it is, or I cannot tell which part it is. Even if I replay the stream, I think it will have that same delay. Hopefully next stream, if everything goes well, I should have tested it for today, I know, but if everything goes well, I'll try an unlisted stream later today, and I'll have a look at if I can go back to a lower latency again. Because this is fairly annoying. Your phone is ringing. It isn't, it's the track, I know. I make tape saturation this time, and I think something about that adds more sub. I don't think that the tape saturator will add more sub to your track. That's because a tape saturator is a very detailed thing. It's like a very small thing there. Very nice, crazy, but okay. It is a fairly crazy track, yeah, but Histro has a history of doing that kind of stuff. Next up is Klaus with Just a Work in Progress, new Sidetrans track, no name yet. Right, that's the name of it, yeah. Hey, how can I send a track? Any contact email? ! Feedback should tell you everything you need to know. It is, yeah, it is in the commands. It's literally the first command here. Right, ! Feedback. Harry, welcome. It does, I've noticed recently. Again, with the latency, it's really unfortunate, but I don't know what you're talking about. Whatever you responded to happened a minute or two ago, and I've been talking since, so I don't remember. Anyway, new Sidetrans track no name yet.mp3 by Klaus K.
The time has come to create a new reality, one in reverence to divinity and its natural wisdom. Energy goes where attention flows.
Nice space for the vocals. This is how you do it. This is how you make sure that the vocal stands out and that you can hear what is being said. Tape saturating, adding bass. Ah. It might be the case. I've always thought that tape saturation is like a detailed amount of saturation, and saturation adds overtones. It adds extra harmonics on top of the harmonics that you would have. So it would make fairly little sense that it would add sub-bass. Maybe if there is some EQ curve in there as well. That can be the case. Maybe some emulation has that actually. Kick, I would try to make it a little bit flatter overall. Have the sub come out a little bit more. Just have it more like a rounded kick. In this case, it feels like it's lacking a little bit of sub for the amount of power that the transient has. Bass doesn't really have a transient, does it? Feels like it's lacking a lot of... there's a little bit there, but it's very small. What I would do, by the way, to anyone, these little things here of the kick, you don't really need that. And you can clear up the space that you get from the hats. I think also the fact that these are always different is a sign of that the kick maybe needs resampling, and the same for the bass. I don't know, this might be an error with Signalizer in the way that it displays the frequencies. I like this. But what I wanted to say is you can basically remove for the kick anything above 10k, and for the bass I would go as low as maybe even like 7k-ish. Just a low pass filter added on top of there so you don't have that material and you don't have to worry about how it's going to clash with other elements. Because it doesn't really do anything. And in the case of Klaus, I would like to hear a little bit more transient to your bassline, maybe a little bit more of that mid-range stuff. This one is better. Here it has more zoom to it. Dem Upside, how are you doing? Welcome. I like your sound design here. Needs a bit more stereo width. Overall, this part feels a little busy in this area here, the 500 Hz area. Also, these percussions that you have, what you could do is pan them around a little bit. You could just, or you could just widen them. Really, when you're widening them, it's another area of separation that you have, so that it starts to clash a little bit less. For one, it makes your bassline come out a little bit more, because it's layered on top of your bassline. For one, the bass was already lacking a little bit of that like higher frequency stuff. It felt very concentrated in the lower frequencies, your bassline. As I said, it lacked a little bit of transient for me, a little bit of that click when it was the rolling bassline. But then if you're putting stuff on top of that, that problem gets exaggerated more and more and more. So you can use a little bit of stereo width on some of your elements to just put it out to the sides a little bit more, so that your bassline occupies or has less clashing in the middle, basically. Rebirth, welcome to the stream. Anybody else? Bo, welcome. How are you doing? I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. This asset is great. Yes, I really like the asset sound design. As I said, it could use some stereo width, but the sound design itself is really good. Quickly check if there's any patrons. For those that don't know, for those that are new on the stream, patrons from now on get priority and feedback. So if you're a Patreon member, if you're a Patreon supporter, I guess, I'll temporarily every once in a while scroll down and check if there's patrons, and anybody that is a patron kind of jumps the queue, because normally we go just in order, right? We just scroll down in order. But if there's any Patreon submitting, you'll go first. That's one of the benefits. It's one of the new benefits of the Patreon. In fact, it was the only new benefit. I did update the Patreon, but only with that benefit. And the other benefits are still there. So early access to videos, you'll get a thank you note in the comments. It just gets your name in the, not the comments, the description. And there's some more stuff. There's some promo codes for my products. I think that's it. I'll correct those issues. Yes, bro, we are waiting for. Next up, we have Pete with currently mastering this track. So currently mastering, that means that it's already mixed. So I'm also going to judge the mix as well. And the track is called Only Thoughts.mp3. Nice strong start. I like this. It is very well balanced. I like this. Very clean kick as well. You always like to see it going back to zero here, giving the transient maximum punch. You can hear what difference that makes. Even though the waveform is completely flat, every transient sounds like it has power behind it. Sophist, welcome. Sausage, yes. I was gonna say it's maybe a little bit on the loud side.
And as you remember, you start to feel that way again.
Okay, here the vocals are a little bit masked.
You're thinking bad thoughts, you're feeling bad emotions. Maybe 10 minutes later, maybe even sooner.
You could low pass that piano a little bit if you're still willing to go back into the production.
All of a sudden, you're not having that thought. And the feeling goes away. Comes out of nowhere. Disappears again. Because it's fucking not real.
The vocal in itself does have a lot of clarity, so that's nice. Cool stuff. I liked it. I've sent it on Discord. Hopefully it works. If you have sent it in the track or in the feedback on stream one, we should come across it at any point. If it's not in here, then I won't listen to it. That's the deal. Did you post it here? Yeah, okay, so this is the wrong channel. Please remove it from this channel and then put it in the right channel. Anyway, regarding the track Pete, I really like the production. I really like the mix. I think it's very well done. One of the things to keep in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff is I noticed you might be going a little bit too hard on the limiting, even for this type of music. I know it's meant to be a sausage. I know it's meant to be aggressive, but you can get this kind of like flatlined waveform without completely pushing up everything so hard. And what I noticed is, especially in the fills, what happens is a lot of your synths get an extra bump of loudness because the kick is removed, right? So what that means is that because that kick, that strong part, which in terms of mixing is the way you want it to be, so there's no real way of fixing the issue that way, like turning down the kick. But what is happening is that the kick stops playing and the limiter immediately reacts by turning up everything else because it just has this extra amount of space, and you say like, oh, I want you to do this much gain. I want you to add this much gain. Now with the kick removed, all of the other elements have much more space. So there's going to be much less ducking, right? How could I explain this better? Maybe with a good drum loop. If I can find a good drum loop. Yes, here. This isn't really a drum loop, but this is a loop. Imagine that you're a limiter and you're tasked with limiting this waveform here. What's going to happen is, say that you're limiting hard on this waveform here, this loudness here. Relatively speaking, you're going to be turning up this part a lot more, right? Because this is very, very quiet. So this, if you add 8 dB of gain to this part here, in fact, let's just do it like this. Say that I add 4 dB to this thing here. We're adding a little bit of limiting. As you can see, it's clipping here and here to this file here, but we're just turning this up by 8 dB. The more that you turn it up, the more that you get to limit around this area, but also the less dynamic range you have between this sound here and this sound here. To a point which you can turn it up so much that it just becomes that sausage, right? And now you don't have any leanway, right? You just have to imagine that this is actually limiting and not just pushing it beyond the level that it shows, right? What that essentially means is that when the synths are playing and they suddenly stop playing here, they get boosted a lot more because this element stops playing. That element stops pushing the limiter. So that is one of the 2 artifacts. It's called pumping. That is one of the 2 limiter artifacts that you can hear. The other one is limiter distortion, which I don't think you really care about because it's nice and a nice and aggressive track. So that doesn't really matter. You might be clipping it even to get this kind of loudness. In that case, that's exactly the kind of distortion that you're after. The difference between a limiter and a clipper, for those that don't know, is a clipper is a limiter with an instant release. So it immediately stops limiting when the waveform returns back below the threshold. Whereas a limiter has a release around, usually the release is like program dependent, which means that they're doing a lot of trickery trying to get it as clean, as transparent as possible. Where a clipper is just like, okay, I'm going to just be distorting it. I'm immediately going to stop limiting when you get below the threshold. And that way you get, it's louder, it's more distorted, but that's sometimes a style that you can go for. For both of these, they have the same problem in that they cause this pumping effect where if a very loud element stops playing, all of the other elements have a lot more space, so they become a lot louder. And the best way to do that is, by the way, with the minimum amount of pushing it into a limiter or clipper, whatever you're using. So that's one of the 2 reasons why you want to do as little as possible with the limiting phase, right? With the final limiter. That's usually why I personally, my master chain looks... for one, I try to fix most of the loudness issues in the mix, right? I try to already have a very flat looking mix in terms of the waveform. And then the final master chain that I use consists of a compressor. I'm not going to set it up, but just to give you an idea. A compressor, then a clipper. So this is clipping off just the hardest transients. And what this is doing is it's making sure that the limiter that's going to come after this clipper doesn't have to work as hard. It doesn't have to catch those very loud peaks. So that way I can boost it a little bit higher without getting that kind of pumping and distorted effect. It's mainly for the distortion, but it also helps with the pumping. Wait, this is the wrong thing. I want the boost VST. I guess I just have to do it here. So this would be kind of my standard master chain. Compressor, this is just gluing everything together. Gives it also a little bit of extra nice weight and bottom end. That usually works well with gluing my kick and bass together. Specifically for the way that I like to mix, because I don't have a kick and bass group. But I won't go into that. The main important thing when it comes to mastering, what I like to do is clipper, take out the highest peaks with the clipper, and then you limit with your final mastering limiter. And the final mastering limiter, make it as transparent as possible, oversampling with true peak. I don't like any emphasis or drive or whatever, no saturation, that kind of thing. Nice long release so that it has a little bit of time to recover. You know, you don't want this to be really pushing it. This final thing here should just be bumping up the loudness, but the sausage, the kind of sausage that you want to get kind of already comes from the clipper. Also, don't clip everything with this. Don't go... I should get a waveform for this to show like a proper... Yeah, just a production of mine. This is a production mix, so it would be... I guess like in terms of flatness, this is kind of what you're aiming for, right? Don't go do this. You can hear the nastiness that causes. But just something like that where it just starts to clip the highest peaks of this waveform, and then it goes into the limiter. So the limiter has to do less work in that case. Hello Acid, Liba Ben, welcome as well. How are you doing? How are the feedback today's? We had some very cool tracks, some very good stuff. Mosquito just submitted. Still Wolf, I don't know if you're still here. Please remove the track from this thing here and post it in the feedback on stream 1. Because I don't look at this one, I'll look at this one here. Just having lunch here. Oh, nice. It's dinner time for me, actually. Almost. It's 6 o'clock. I usually go 8, 9 o'clock-ish. Obviously, today it's a little bit later because of the feedback stream. Usually 10 o'clock I'll have dinner, so a little bit late. But as they say here in Italy, buon appetito. No patrons. No patrons. Okay. So next up is Lost Synapse with Shadows of Kali. I produced, mixed, mastered it. I'm a beginner. Synths plus some physical instrument, a flute, some percussion, etc. Thank you so much. You're welcome. A YouTube link. There's some stuff happening in the low frequencies here. Usually you want to remove that very low frequency stuff, whatever is causing it. You can see it messes with my analyzer too, but in general it's not a good idea to have that stuff. I think this might even be DC offset, almost. Like not really, it is oscillating, but it's like very low frequency stuff, and you don't really need that. No speaker is going to be able to reproduce that, so you might as well remove it and get yourself some extra headroom in return. I like the sound design. I like the inclusion of the flute as well that you had before. I don't like what the plucky bass line is doing. It feels a little bit on the random side, like there's not really a pattern to it. I like how it interacts with the melody, the bass line, but it feels like the pattern or the rhythm that it plays is a bit random. Like right now it's just playing one note, and before it was just... What might be nicer is to add something like a re-space. Oh, sorry. It's buffering for some reason. Give it 2 seconds to load the video again. That's the annoying thing about YouTube submissions, is they sometimes, because it's a video, it takes a little bit longer to load, and I didn't actually see it happening, otherwise I would have known. Ratus, how are you doing? I'm doing fine, thank you for asking. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, I'll just skip it back a little bit and we'll continue here. Sorry for that. For some reason, the synth is slowly losing power. Like in the beginning it was almost too overwhelming, and now it's sitting more in the right spot. I like the violin part. Sorry, first time Discord user here. No worries. Who are we listening to? We are listening to Lost Synapse with Shadows of Kali. Wait, there is a kick drum in here. Ah! Because the kick and the bass plays on the same part, it's... I mean, it's not as bad with this kind of music, right? Like, this isn't the tight production that your usual Psytrance track is. In that it's a little bit looser in the way it's produced as well. But what I would highly recommend is not playing bass notes and kick drums at the exact same time. That's usually causing clashing issues. And that's why it took me so long to notice the kick drum. I also think the kick might be a little bit quiet here. I like it. Production is very well done. I like the musicality of it. It sounded nice and flowy. It's that kind of loose, as I said, loosey production. Please stop the autoplay. I can turn it off here in YouTube. The big problem that your track has at the moment is whatever is happening in the lower frequencies there, right? Like this mess does not need to be here. If you're wondering, for anybody who's watching, you fix this in the mix, you don't fix that in the master. The worst thing that you can do to any master track, even if it's not sidetrance, in sidetrance it's a death sentence for your track, but even in other genres, one of the worst things that you can do to your master is something like this, where you remove those frequencies in the master with a steep filter. There's a lot of people that do this, and they have no idea what they're doing, and this causes many, many more issues than it solves. In this case, you can just go into your production, see which track is causing that issue, which is causing that low frequency stuff to be there, and just apply this to only that track. That's a much better solution than doing it in the master. So that's all that I would say. That's the biggest issue for me, is that you have that continuous low frequency, kind of almost like a pulse thing that you just don't need. Speaker cannot reproduce it, so it's just unnecessary, and you'll gain some headroom if you remove it as well, because that oscillation is fairly dominant. You saw it in the waveform, right, while we were playing it, how dominant that oscillation is, how much it pushes the waveform up and down, like all of these lower peaks in here, all of this stuff here. It's really not needed, and all of that is coming from that low oscillation there. Okay, thanks very much for all the feedback. You're welcome. I hope that's helpful. Next up, Virtual Instinct with Virtual Madness 150 BPM Master. Let's see. Sorry, first time Discord user. Okay, Flowwolf. It's also a bit strange that you are posting the same track twice. I guess multiple people are doing. It's okay, but it looks a little bit strange. Doesn't matter. Like you posted in feedback on stream and feedback not for stream. It's like reconnection successful. Hello? I should be back now. Yeah, we just had a little crash, the usual crash, the usual OBS crash that lost connection. I should be back, yes. It's not one of those other connection issues that we had the last few times. Anyway, Virtual Madness 150 BPM Master. Let's listen. Yeah, what I was saying was about the people that post in feedback on stream and feedback not for stream. It feels like it's very spammy, like, please listen to my music, please listen to my music. I'm just going to post it everywhere and try to get as many plays as I want. That's not what my Discord is for and this feedback stream is for, right? I'm just sitting here giving you my opinion on the track, and that's it. You're not going to use me for, like, farming views or whatever. What I should maybe consider doing is closing any other avenue for people to post their tracks, like the feedback not for stream, the stream discussion, the music you released. All of this stuff should probably be closed whenever I'm doing feedback on stream, so that people can only post here. I don't know if there's an easy way for me to just set up a toggle for that, so that I can stop people from posting in the other ones. Anyway, Virtual Madness by Virtual Instinct. Let's go. Some very mono atmospheres here. I don't know if I like that. Nice tone to your kick and bass. You could make the bass line a bit shorter. And overall, kick and bass has too much sub to it. It needs more energy coming from the higher harmonics here. This is too low. This is like, you just balance it out a bit more, like that. Your hi-hats make no sense here. The most important part is missing. You have groove on the two weakest parts of the beat, right? So the beat is this part here. This will make much more sense once the groove theory video comes out. But the offbeat is your second most important part after the kick itself, right? So if you're gonna give this part and this part energy and high frequency stuff, then definitely this one should have high frequency stuff there as well. Like now it feels much more danceable, right? Because we have that offbeat hi-hat. It's hard on 50 Hz. Yeah, it's very strong here. Too strong. Overall, the bassline feels like it's lacking a little bit of punch because you're so low in the frequencies here. That's one of the issues that you get if you have so much sub bass, is that you remove a lot of the punch because relative all of the other things like the click and the strength of the transient is just completely gone. The sound design is really good though. I really like the sound design. Overall, I would say paying a little bit more attention to the stereo field. For one, I think the bassline, part of the reason might be again because all of the other harmonics are so quiet because the sub bass is so loud. Maybe you are doing a little bit of stereo processing on your bassline, but in general, I would recommend stereo processing on your bassline. I've recently started producing a dark side track just for like an experiment for a video kind of thing. It's just started, right? Like it's nowhere near a finished track, otherwise I would have played it during the break. But even there, in the more dark side kind of genre, I think that some stereo riff really helps the bass line get extra power and just get an extra bit of nice tonality to it.
Making you aware of the polarity of things.
But what I want to say, I feel like in general in your track, we can see it here in how close to mono this is. You're not really using the stereo field to your advantage. Like some of the synths are also completely dead mono, and I would definitely widen them by quite a lot. Some of them are better. You can see sometimes it just jumps out. That's where you have a synth that really works well. Like this one, right? that zappy, acidy kind of thing. That is a good stereo field. Dark Side, cool. Yeah, it's a really cool project. I actually really enjoy working on that track right now. The final thing I'll say is, as much as I like your sound design, it's not very varied. I just hate it. I just hate autoplay. I know it's good for people who are just listening to music, and that's really what SoundCloud is for, right? But as an edge case, I would like to have the ability to turn off autoplay in SoundCloud, and I don't think you can. I don't think there's any way to turn it off. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say, sorry, it just completely takes me out of what I was thinking about. The other thing that I wanted to say is that as cool as your sound design is, it is lacking a little bit in variation, right? Autoplay hates you also. Yes, it does seem that way sometimes. The sound design is very good. It is just lacking, as I said, in variation. Often the modulations feel like they're the same modulation over and over and over again. And also, there doesn't seem to be a lot of distinction between different segments of the track. I noticed in general that you don't really have a lot of proper fills to them. There are some like double kicks and stuff like that, which do kind of help in the what we say, like resetting the listener. That's the idea. That one of the functionalities of a fill is that, say somebody enters on the dance floor right as your track is playing, they don't really know where in the track they are in terms of in the 4 beats that make up a bar, right? And that's an important part of the information when you're dancing to it. What a fill does is it stops the beat or the music for a little bit, bar, maybe 2 bars, something like that. And then it continues on so that anybody that is a little bit lost in the music can find themselves again, right? And they know when to start dancing again. So that they're actually in tempo with the groove. So that's one of the things. What fills also do is they allow you to vary the different elements that play. So a fill is the perfect opportunity. And in fact, I really cannot stand it if people just kind of randomly start adding elements and stop adding elements in the middle of their track. You should really use a fill for that. Where when a fill plays, either during the fill you transition into a new element, or right when the kick starts playing. So usually when it comes to drums, right? The fill plays, and then the first kick hits, and then you introduce whatever drum loop or open hi-hat or whatever you have that kind of needs to play from that point on. Sometimes I heard there was a track earlier during the stream where just randomly in the middle of the drop, the hats started playing. It sounds so strange, like suddenly there's these hats that just start playing. That's where a fill is for. That's where you have the time to say to the listener, okay, kick and bass is gone for a little bit, right? A bar, maybe 2 bars. The kick and bass stops playing. Maybe there's like a kick fill. Usually what I do with kick fills in my actual proper fills is that I trim them down quite a bit, maybe like 5-6 dB or something like that, so that it is clear that it's not the main kick, right? And the kick when the main kick comes in, it has a little bit extra punch. But it also gives you a chance to tell the listener, okay, listen up, something is about to happen. There's a reason why the kick and bass is gone for a little bit. We're going to prepare some elements for you. And when the kick comes back, you can start dancing again with some new cool sounds that you can also listen to, right? That's what the fill is communicating within a piece of music. And I feel like you're missing a little bit in that part. It feels like it just kind of goes on and on and on, and it's always the same sounds. Let's see, it's been an hour and a half. Are there any Patreon submissions? Not yet. Tyler, how are you doing? Welcome. Next up is Rebirth with Phenomenal. Let's have a listen. Very loud intro here. Okay. So it's just intro stops, and then the kick starts to play. A little bit strange. I would assume that would fade into the kick and bass. Overall, the kick and bass does need cleaning. I like to see that you're fixing it at least for the kick, but the bass lines are morphing into each other, so that's definitely something to fix. You would resample your bass line, and then in that case you don't need to LFO tool it. Very short intro, yes. Here again, the hat just starts to play, right? You would have a fill, stop the kick and bass for a little bit, and then when the new thing comes in, then the hat starts to play. Apart from the fact that the hat seems to turn off randomly right now, the offbeat open hat. I don't know what you're doing with the offbeat hat, but it makes very little sense. I do like your transition in here. That does sound very nice, this new synth here. But again, there were no fills, nothing like that. So that's definitely something to take care of in this track. It is a little bit of short track. I think you're still working on it, Rebirth. The final thing I'll say that I noticed is that your bass line can use a little bit more snap. What that usually means, for those that follow my methodology of making bass lines, if I quickly pull up something like my preset pack, which you all should get, by the way. Projector Psytrance Essentials Volume 3 here. I have the temporary version. Actually, this is the version that I have. When it comes to snappier basslines, if the bassline needs a little bit more snap, this is what I mean. In mine, I call it closer. Like closing the bassline means that it becomes more snappy. Can I play? Do you see what's happening to the LFO that is controlling the filter cutoff? I like to do that by LFO. I don't think that the envelope method, it's a little bit old school, and the LFO can do the task much better because you can just draw in the shape that you want. But the main thing that you can see is that you get more snap to it, more beginning, and also the sustain frequency or the sustain modulation, the part that it's sustaining to, slightly lowers. Those two things is what I mean with when it needs to be more snappier. It focuses more of the energy towards the transient, and you get that less grittiness in the mid-range in the sustain part of your bass line. And in this case, I would do like some phasing here, but yeah, I like this more than this. This sounds very open to me, and then this is maybe a little bit too close, but something like this, right? This is a very complex patch. I think I explained it somewhere in the ultimate guide to kick and bass, but essentially what this does is it makes it so that you don't have to phase line this bass line, because it removes the sub bass whenever the kick is playing. That's the whole modulation setup here, right? So the sub bass is only playing in the quarter note or the offbeat basically. So this is where the sub of the kick would be, and then this is where the sub of the bass line is. This also has a separated sub, which means that we're using a wavetable bass line, so you don't have to process this bass line either. It already comes with all of the phasing that you want in the wavetable itself. In order to get a little bit more dynamics out of that, I'm introducing the sub bass a little bit later in the cycle as well. So that this is a very complex patch, but for anybody that wants to use it, now that I'm promoting my preset pack, keep that in mind. Like, everything is already in order for this bassline. This is a bassline that you just drop into your track. Maybe do a little bit of EQing on it. I usually remove a little bit of 500 Hertz even on this patch, but that's kind of the standard way I like to do it. You can EQ it however you want, obviously. And then some stereo processing with stereo spread. I wouldn't do any more processing than this, because if you do more processing than this, you're just going to mess up more than you really want, or that's necessary, because you can just choose how much processing you want with this phasing parameter here. For anybody that's interested in the preset pack, that's how it works. Just a little promo there, seeing as I had 25 viewers, I think it would be nice to do a little bit of promo. Anyway, Mary7782, here's a future prog track in the style of Gonzi plus Core G. Lascar with What Do You Want? Let's see. Very nice artwork. By the way, nice little bulldog cover art thingy there. I like it. Isn't Gonzi more Goa Minimale thing? Maybe this does become Goa Minimale after a while.
Do what you want when you're here with me.
Ah, yes. Very deep feeling to it.
You want when you're here with me.
Feels like they take tags, got me feeling like a maniac. Darkest location, like where you at? That boy a pussy and that's
I like it. There's no way I'm going to see the cleanliness of the kick and bass. The kicks do look clean to me, and that the transients don't seem to be pushed around. But that can be because of the sidechaining and not necessarily real cleaning. I like it. There's not much to say. As I said, I cannot check the cleanliness. That's the usual check that I like to do. But in terms of tonality, in terms of mix, this is very well done.
Watch me do my thing, throwing some money out, make it rain, stop. I'm going big, and if you can't come, that's fine by me.
It's gonna go faster. Are we going to get a hardstyle drop? My orange blood is gonna love it if that's the case.
Do what you want when you're here with me.
I don't think we will get that. Okay, yeah, so definitely lacking the clean bass line here, as you can see. This transient is just being messed up completely. So that means that you need to resample all of your bass lines. No hard sell, unfortunate. Next time. I do really like this part though, don't worry. It's I heard that it was speeding up, but this also works. Nice switch, I like that. I like it. Final tip, a little bit more of a fade out for the outro, so that it just fades out a little bit longer. What that tends to do, and why this is important, is say that your music was ever on Spotify in somebody's playlist. What happens now is that the production finishes immediately, and then immediately it will go into the next track. You want to give the listener a little bit of time to realize what they just listened to. Right? That's why we have a fade out to the track. So that for just maybe 2-3 seconds, they have like, they can process what happened in the track and stuff like that. Otherwise, they are immediately thrown into the next track and they don't really have time to think about your track. That's why you'll see almost all Psytrance track, and to be honest, even non-Psytrance tracks, just in general, almost all music has a fade out that kind of looks like, I hope this one has it. Yeah, like this, where it's just fading out over a little bit of time and the file is a little bit longer. There's barely anything happening here. I might have some better examples actually. 99, I think this one. Yeah. In this case, I decided to go for a very long outro, but even here, so this is the outro that's playing. There's no kick and bass in here anymore. There's just like instruments playing just to finalize the track. And even here, after the outro, basically, there's this other fade out that just gives the listener some time to process what is happening in the track. And if I were to cut this off here, right, it would sound very unnatural because one, there's delay stuff still happening here. And two, they don't really have time to think about, what did I just listen to? What time is it? It's almost been 2 hours of streaming, which means that I'm gonna be taking a break. Which does mean that I can just leave this thing here. I can just use this for the break music today. This is still very much in production. Very new track. Nothing is mixed, nothing is mastered, as you guys know from the way that I work. But I'm going to take a quick break and we will be back soon. And then after that we'll continue with Dema. Okay, so I should be able to... Yes. See you guys in 2-3 minutes and then maybe a little bit longer. That was so close to my track. I'm sorry, but I'll be right back. It's just a quick break. This track will play once and then I'll be back and I'll listen to your music again.
dream any dream you wanted to dream. Naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes, every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And then you would get more and more adventurous, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality.
Thank you, Cider. Thank you, Dema. I'm glad you guys are liking the track already. It's, for me, when I'm producing these tracks, when I'm initially in the production, they always sound very, very good. Like, it's not like I don't like this track right now. But then there's that stage where I kind of go into a dip when it's finalized like this, where all of the ideas are in there and I need to work on the details. And then when I finally get to mixing and mastering this track, there's gonna be a huge bump in just the quality of all of the sounds. So I'm currently working on a lot of different productions. A lot of different tracks are in the production stage. In fact, there was a video that came out today actually on finishing tracks, where you would have seen kind of like the stages in which I am. And I think I even talked about it in that video. This idea that at some point you just kind of need to let this track sit for a while, and then you need to get into mixing and mastering, and then I'm going to redefine all of the balances and all of that stuff, and then it's really going to become the proper track that it needs to be. So right now I'm in this stage for this particular track and for a few other of these productions that I'm not going to show at this point. I'm going to keep a few of my production secrets since I have so many of them. But that there's gonna be a point where this track is going to be like rebalanced, and then it's going to really be a good track again, for me at least. That's how I like to work. It's the strange phenomenon of, I think everybody has this, when you're listening to your own music, you're a lot more critical of it than anybody else's music. Like, I cannot really enjoy my own music. I'm always thinking of, okay, how can I improve this work that I'm currently listening to? I think everybody has that. And I think for that reason, it's a good thing that I'm doing these feedback streams, because that means that people get a way of actually improving their music. Next up is Dema. This is one of my first EP masterized by Wild Mastering. Masterized. I'm assuming that you just mean mastered. Anyway, this is Anyway, this is another Identity 150 by Dema, minus 6 dB, F sharp, 24 bits, 16 bits. That's a little bit of a strange way of saying it. It's either 24 bits or 16 bit. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Another Identity by Dema. Let's see. I like it. Nice clarity here. Kick and bass is nice and clean. You could fade it out earlier, like these fades here, you don't really need that. I think this is the transient, maybe this part here. If this is the transient, then it's definitely being pushed around and you would need to fix that here as well. Like that fade out. If not, then I guess it's okay. You could fade it out a bit more, your bassline, once you've done the resampling. Monstered, yes. I do self-feedback sometimes with a lot of mushrooms. Yeah, that helps. Understanding how your music is going to actually work when you're tripping helps. Balance-wise, I like this. What I would do with your hi-hats is a little bit of LFO2 on them, a little bit of that sidechain pumping. Not so much to get rid of it on the kick, right? But to just have a little bit of groove to it, so it follows the movements that you're doing while you're dancing. What I don't like is when you're using vocals, they don't really have the space in the track, right? So you might know what the vocals are saying because you can solo them when you're listening to them in the production project. But it's hard for the listener to understand what they're saying. And if a vocal doesn't contribute to the storytelling in the sense that you cannot hear what is being said, then it doesn't really have a use, right? So it's a little bit of a strange conundrum in that there is the vocal in there, but we cannot really hear what it's trying to tell us. It has that same annoying feeling that it has when you're talking to your friends on the dance floor and he's just screaming into your ear and you don't really know what he is actually trying to tell you. So when it comes to adding vocals, I would personally just add them in, for example, space like this, where you just have a lot more space. And then even then, In this case, that vocal that just played is just like a laugh thing. You don't really need to hear it, so that delay was fine. But when you're doing the spoken vocals that add to the story of the track, a little bit less delay usually, a little bit less reverb, making some space in the production for it, you know, not too many high frequencies. I did the short on this recently, actually. If this was playing at a party, I would be dancing for sure. Yes, same. I like that. That sounded very nice. I don't know if that was intentional, but felt a little bit strange that the mid-range just suddenly collapsed there. It might be an effect that you're going for. If you're low pass filtering the kick and bass, what usually complements that very well is also having a little bit of a low pass filter on your top loop, so that they both kind of decline in energy together. It feels very strange if the high frequencies just kind of continue in the same way, whereas the other like important element for the dancing, which is the kick and bass, right? You have the two important elements, which is the drums and then the kick and bass. If one is kind of lowering in frequency, the other one is just staying at the same level, it's like a mixed message of energy. You drink tea, coffee with sugar or without? I don't drink coffee. I do drink tea. When I drink tea, I drink it with a lot of sugar. I definitely enjoy sugar, as you can tell from the drinks that I'm having here. This is the syrup stuff that is predominantly sugar and a little bit of taste as well. Very well done. I really like the production. As I said, there's some details that I think I pointed out, but overall, I think I should say this more. When it comes to this feedback here, I tend to be fairly negative in the things that I say, because I want the track to play as much as possible without me talking. So if I say like, I like this, I like that, I'll sometimes say it, but most of the time I'll try to keep quiet in that regard. This production is very, very well done. I really, really like it. There's just some details that you could always improve, and that will be the case with any production. Right? If Asterix joined the chat right now and he submitted a track for feedback, I would be honored to listen to his track, but I'll probably still, you know, say a couple of things that I wouldn't like, even though knowing him, like, his productions are phenomenal, his mixing is phenomenal, his mastering is phenomenal. There's always things that I would change, that I would maybe improve here or there, stuff like that. So when I say negative things, it's not trying to bash somebody or to just try to be negative, stuff like that. It's trying to give you guys the chance to listen to the track as much as possible. And I do think that this was a very, very good production. Next up is Mosquito, also known as Carapana. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's probably more Spanish, the pronunciation, seeing as there's the little wiggle on the A there. Or at least I'm assuming that that's Spanish, right? The wiggle thing. But his track is called Space. It's 145 BPM and it's D sharp. Here the the name has the little A thingy on it. So I think I've seen that in Spanish. Have I? I don't know. You guys know that pronunciation is not my best thing. Let's call Asterix for the feedback stream sometime. I would literally just fall on the floor and hide if Asterix came in my chat. I don't have the confidence to criticize his track here. I like it. The tone of the kick and bass is very well done. The atmospheres are too loud in my opinion. You could turn them down by, I think, a solid 5-6 dB even. That way the leads are going, and the one shots that you have are going to come through more. Ooh. Your sound design is very unique, very cool though. It is very atmosphere based. I do think that it's a little bit loud. I want to see if I can find a spot to see the cleanliness of your kick and bass, but I think you're doing a bass line that is so short that it doesn't fade into the kick or the next bass note even without resampling maybe. I don't know, maybe you've just resampled but we'll have to see if there's a spot where the kick and bass is just playing on its own. Dharma, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Carapana. They're just not giving me any more information. I am Asterix undercover. Oh no. Typicus, welcome. Overall, as I said, the kick and bass can come out of the mix a little bit more. Maybe not every sound, but especially the atmospheres can be, as I said, turned down by 6 dB. But even some synths are slightly overpowering the kick and bass here. Yeah, okay, so your baseline is basically fading to zero right before the transient is happening, which is exactly what you want, meaning that this kick and bass is clean. I don't know if you resampled. It does seem that there's a little bit of processing on it, not too much, but there's definitely a little bit of phase shift happening. So yeah, this is in terms of kick and bass. I don't know if you resampled or if it's just the bass line being short enough that you don't have to resample. But either way, it's done well. Here it isn't. This is the issue. Do you see what I mean? In that the bass line kind of fades into the transient of the kick, and therefore the kick is going to lose punch here. In this case, you could just fix it with an LFO tool. You don't have to resample because this is sliding bass line. Barono, welcome. How are you doing? Nice transition back into the rolling kick and bass. So I just sent track on the feedback on stream. Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. Feedback on stream right here. There's a little reading needed before posting, but that's self-explanatory. Just making sure that you own full copyright to the music that you provide to me and that you approve me using this track for the purpose of the feedback stream and the subsequent video that will be made from the stream by YouTube. Just so that, you know, legally I'm allowed to use your track for whatever, or for the feedback stream. You're doing some very crazy sound design. I really like the sound design that you're doing. Very unique. I like it. Very melodic. I just heard that sound. I was thinking like the one sound that we just heard it's just a melody playing a saw wave, but because you're playing a melody and then have the bandpass over it, it is different from the normal saw wave with a bandpass filter that is kind of overused a little bit. So as I said, really cool track. I really like it. It is properly cleaned, the kick and bass. I did not get the opportunity to check if your kick fills and stuff like that is cleaned, in the same way that we don't want our bass note to overlap with the transient of the next bass note. We also don't want, if we have a kick fill where we're, for example, playing 16 note kicks, we don't want one kick kind of fading its sub bass into the transient of the next. But unfortunately, with the track being this busy and this full, it is hard to tell. Another contributing factor to that is the fact that, as I said, all of your other sounds are a little bit on the loud side. In terms of the sound design, I think the drums were mixed well. They were also a little bit, it's also a little bit hard to tell because all of those other sounds were, you know, just overpowering the rest of the music a little bit. So that's the main feedback I would give you is, if you're using, like me, a template where you have a template for sequences, a template or a group for sequences, a group for one-shots, and a group for atmospheres, take those three and just turn them down by 5 dB. That could work. Like, I think it's that much, like, too loud, even. Especially the atmospheres that we heard in the beginning. Atmospheres like that really are supposed to be supportive elements, right? They're not really meant to be upfront in your face elements because they're very slow and they tend to really lower the energy of the track, the musical energy of it. I say musical because I recently had an argument actually by somebody who interpreted the term energy as a physical thing, like from physics. And he said, like, okay, the energy is mainly in the lower frequencies, which is true if you talk about it from a physical point of view, but if you talk about it from a musical point of view, in especially in psytrance, the energy comes from the high frequencies in the top drum, in the top loop, and the speed of your synths, basically. So atmospheres, as they are very, very slow to open up and slow down, they are very low energy elements, right? Because they're very slow. They're that kind of sound. So for those elements, if you turn them down a little bit, you'll get a little bit more power out of your track as well, because they're not overpowering the kick and bass as much, and the 16-note rhythm kind of comes through a little bit more. But overall, I like it. Very good production. Just some small things that I would change. Next up, we have LDC with Call for Peace. Very nice artwork here as well. Look at this. Custom artwork. I like it. little bit empty of an intro here. Here you can see a kick and bass that isn't cleaned, right? So this, you can see here there's a transient. This transient is much more visible because this bass note is quieter. And you can see what it does to this transient here. This transient is non-existent. So you have almost no power coming from this bass line here. And even the kick, you can see it's kind of morphing into the kick a little bit. It's hard to see in this case, but you can see it's kind of pushing the waveform of the kick around a little bit. What I also think is that your bass line has a little bit too much 500 Hz and it could be a little bit closer. If you go back into the stream, I explain what closer is when I talk about one of my bass patches. It could be a little bit snappier, a little bit more click, a little bit more transient to it, and a little bit less open of a sustain. I think this is another one of those tracks where it's lacking a little bit of 100 Hz on the kick. Doesn't really have that punch to it. As well, the kick almost sounds like it's distorting a bit. There was a kick without a transient. That's strange. The hi-hats can have a little bit more air. They seem to be focused at around 6K here. I like to focus them around 10K personally. They get that little bit of extra sizzle. Also, they feel a little bit washed out, so I'm thinking that you already have some reverb on them. If you do, make that reverb stereo, because having a little bit of stereo component to that drum is also nice for stereo listeners. It just makes it feel a little bit more alive. Didn't clean the bass straight from the synth. Yeah, I can tell on the waveform. There is a video on cleaning kick and bass on my channel. Most people know it. It's a fairly popular video, I think, on my channel. It is very, very important. If you don't know what resampling is, then that video will explain resampling. It's a crucial step, in my opinion, for a proper cleaning or for proper kick and bass. There was some weird stereo bass stuff happening all of a sudden. It kind of happened already when the kick and bass was still playing. I would have a little fill there so that you have maybe half a bar or a bar without that any bass, and then the bass impact comes in. Overall, I do want to say I really like the vibe that you're going for. It's like Dark Side, but very melodic. Right, it has that kind of darker, more abstract sound design to it. A lot of that very resonant stuff that you're doing, that all of this stuff, that's very Dark Side-ish, but I like the fact that you're incorporating a lot of melody into it as well. Very unique style, I like it. A nice, warm saw wave chords that you're using here. Here I'm expecting a little bit of a snare drum as well, 60 notes. Overall, your kick can have more click to it, more transient to it. Wait, are you frequency shifting the kick at any point? Let's see. Look at the waveform. No, here it's okay. I thought that sometimes the waveform just looked completely different, and that's a sign that you're leaving a frequency shifter on there, which can really mess up your kick, by the way. Yeah, here the waveform is slightly different. I don't know what's happening, but maybe you need to resample your kick. Maybe you're making your kick in a synth still and you need to resample that as well. The other thing that can cause this, as I said, is a frequency shifter. Okay, here there's some element that is overpowering the kick and bass. That sound is too loud. There was another kick without any transient. Overall, as I said, the kick can have more click, right? I hope I said that. Generally speaking, in the high frequencies, you want your kick to be a little bit stronger in the high frequencies than your bass. And I think here in general, the kick can have that higher click to it. Yeah, there you can see. Did you see that kick? No transient whatsoever here. It also sounded distorted, your kick drum. I don't know where it's coming from. I'm thinking you can see the waveform here is kind of... It's also a bit stereo, I think, looking at the waveform here now. It's like a little bit... You can see that there's actually two waveforms here. That's the difference between the left and the right channel. And also the kick, it felt a little bit gritty, like it's doing that on the sub bass. I would personally look to not do that. Generally speaking, when it comes to sidetrance is a very, very clean genre when it comes to the kick and bass itself. There's usually a little bit of saturation on there, but I think you're going a little bit too far with it. I don't know what you're doing, what's causing this. Maybe you're using a sample and it's just an issue with the sample. The fact that there's no transient whatsoever in here suggests that you're making the kick and that there's something going wrong in this part here. That's the reason why there's no transient. But also the grittiness. I think you can see it here as well in that these lines indicate that there's some higher frequencies there. But there's like some real strange grittiness to it, and personally I don't like the sound of that, and usually it's not done as well. Anything else that comes to mind? Yeah, okay, last thing for your track. I felt like so you had 4 breakdowns, right? 3-4 breakdowns. I think if you're going with this more dark side sound design kind of stuff, you should probably limit yourself to 2 breakdowns maximum. I felt really the last breakdown for me that was in the track felt a little bit unnecessary. Yeah, it's weird. Kick 2. Kick 2, I think, naturally adds some drive to it if you don't turn off the drive segment. I've never used Kick 2, but I've seen it in tutorials, and I think every time I've seen people open it up in a tutorial that the drive is engaged automatically. So in that case, remove it. And the best way, by the way, to fix the transient issue is to remove the or not remove, but to resample your kick. Not play it in kick 2, but to resample it to audio and then arrange your kick with an audio file. Okay. Still no Patreon supporters. Again, for those that don't know, if you want priority in the feedback streams, if you want me to immediately listen to your track, if you post it, obviously after we stop listening to the one that we're currently on, you can get my Patreon, and then you get priority in the feedback streams. But since there's no Patreon supporters here, we'll go with Flow Wolf with his track Fear, 142 BPM. Also going for
the experience of fear.
Some very melodic, very...
In other words, when you are afraid, are you actually feeling?
Dark style. Very melodic as well.
A person is afraid of having a certain sickness, disease.
The vocals, I like that you're leaving enough space for them in the mix, but the vocals themselves in this case don't have enough high frequencies.
Our attention from that.
You're leaving enough space in the higher frequencies, right? At around like 3K-ish, this area here. There's, I think, enough space left. You could maybe make a little bit more space if you want. But in that case, you would need to use that space with the vocals. Is there a bass playing here? I think there's a bass playing. I can hear a bass line, I think. At the beginning, I assumed that this was still the intro. If that's not the case, then the bass line needs to be louder. Also here, I can probably tell you that you would need to clean the kick and bass. The way that I can tell in this case is, I don't want to be harsh, but the production still screams a little bit of beginner to me. Just the way that it's laid out, like the bass line being so quiet, and some of the other things that you're doing in terms of the arrangement.
You find something. We get a sort of sinking,
I think that means that you did not resample your kick and bass. I'm just gonna have a guess here. What program am I using to watch this? This is called Signalizer. It's a free VST and I'm hosting that in Ableton. Yeah, but the bass line is way too quiet here. Also, there's some really weird stuff going on with whatever clap that you're using that layers on the bass line or on the kick very strangely, that you get these peaks here. This is not a good idea. Because it means that your master chain has to do a lot more work in order to deal with this sudden transient. You should be able to kind of phase align it in the same way that you would phase align a bass line, but almost in the opposite way, and that you want to minimize this peak by changing the phase of, in this case, the clap or snare, whatever it is. First sidetrack. Okay, yeah. I mean, for a first track, it's very well done. Your effects are a little bit loud. Here, the effect that swoosh is overpowering the rest of the track. An effect like that, a swoosh like that, is meant to help the track transition. It's not meant to be a foreground element, right? It's almost like a subconscious element.
You have also precisely the same sensation that you have in a totally opposite situation. When you have what we call shudders or...
I like that you're using this melodic theme I think it's becoming a little bit overused now because I think it has been playing throughout the whole track up until this point.
Sometimes even the same creepy feeling up the spine, the same sinking feeling in the pit of the stomach. That's a very profound, positive emotional experience.
At this point, seeing that you have the acid line, I would remove the other melodic elements so that the acid line can really take over that duty. I do really like the kick that you have now. Very nice punchy kick. I think I said before you had some issues with the snare. Listening to it now for a little bit longer, I would find a different snare. Because I also don't really like the sound of it. I guess it does fit the track tonally. But seeing as it's causing you a lot of issues and it has this kind of weird sound to it, it is this like tuck snare to it, right? I think I played some samples before, I'll play some more again later. You'll have an idea of, like, a sidewind snare is usually just white noise. Obviously EQ'd and it has some tonal changes to it, but it's mainly the noise component that you want. You don't really want that mid-range from it. And part of the reason is so that it doesn't fight with the powerful mid-range that usually comes from the kick, which is in your case causing these massive peaks that you see, those massive spikes. As cool as the melody was in the beginning, right now it is becoming so boring that I kind of want this track to end here. It's just repeating too much. You have to keep in mind that unlike a pop track, right, which is maybe 3 minutes, 2.5 minutes long, and usually has like a counter melody, maybe it has a bridge with a different melody, stuff like that. A sidewind track is 8 minutes. In your case, 8 minutes and 11 seconds. So to have that melody throughout the whole track, it just becomes boring to the point where you just really want it to be finished because it's the same thing over and over and over again. There's not really a lot of progression to it as well. Like what I would do is I would use it in the intro, maybe slightly open the filter of the patch over time a little bit, and then maybe the first segment of the drop you use it, and then you use it in the breakdown, and then you use it for the outro again. And for all of the other elements you focus on very different sound design that contrast with this melodic stuff here. That would give the sound itself also a lot more power, and it makes it sound more special because it's just not playing the whole time. I don't know, I think there's another track from Flow Wolf, it's called Conquering Fear. I don't know if it's the same one. I'll just quickly check. Yes. Okay, so I think he just posted the same track twice. I don't know, maybe that second post, the SoundCloud post, was a little bit newer. If I had played that, maybe some of these things would have been addressed, but I clicked the first one and that's the one we played. Great, really appreciate your advice. It's the same. Perfect. Perfect. Then we'll continue with Dreamland by Cider. Just finished the arrangement, no mixing and mastering done. Looking for some tips on the arrangement, sound, and which leads should go and which can stay. Okay. Speaking about mixing and mastering, I do quickly want to plug something more. I recently added a new section to my criminally underused website. I actually have a website, but it's fairly old. It takes a while to load. I need to redo it, or at least I need to optimize it. I wrote my bachelor thesis on optimizing websites, and it doesn't show in my own website because it takes a while to load. Anyway, I am offering mixing services for anybody interested in having their tracks mixed and mastered by me. There will be a PDF here outlining all of the services that you can expect. All of the prices are neatly pointed out here. This includes mixing and mastering, so it's actually a decently competitive price, even if it's maybe I'm starting up here. If you're already happy with your mix, then mastering itself is $50 per song, as you can see here. There are some things that you need to take into account, like file delivery stuff, some tips and tricks, and things about the payment. This should be the update one, right? No, sorry. I need to update this document, sorry. There's some issue here about the payment. There's already a new one, but after the stream, I'll immediately update that, and then it should be updated. It's strange that it's still that old document. Maybe I cached it somewhere. But anyway, mixing services are available for anybody interested in having their tracks mixed by me and mastered by me. So, yeah, just wanted to tell you that that's now something that I do. Anyway, Dreamland by Cider. I like this nice old school vibe. The atmosphere slash riser that's in here is maybe a bit on the loud side. Goa vibes, yes, very old school. In terms of leads, up until this point, there's nothing that really stands out as being off. Like, it's all working well together, so... And it's not overpowered, like the track isn't too full. The only thing that I heard was that there was this I think that there's a vocal pad in here that was playing for a very long time. both in the intro as well as in the first drop. And even here it might be in there gated. It might be the same problem that we had with the melody in the last track, where it's playing for so long that at some point it becomes boring. In this case, I don't think it's in here anymore. I think that the other lead just happens to play in the same frequencies. Overall, one of the things I would like to hear is a little bit more sub-bass power from the kick. Something you'd play in a car over a long drive? Yes. I mean, yeah, depends on what kind of music you're into, but I can definitely see that. I would personally want to dance to this though. I would much rather be on the beach in Goa, India and actually, you know, be able to dance rather than having to drive. But that's just because I don't like driving. So just EQ for more sub? Yes, you can just EQ. Okay, so when it comes to filters, I like to demonize filters a little bit because they cause the issues with the cleanliness. But it's just, you can EQ your kick, right? And then you can just resample it and replace the kick sample that you're using. Like in Ableton, you can just go into the manage file stuff and there replace the sample. So you just take one of the kick samples and you put it on maybe a new track, EQ it, freeze it, flatten it, and then you just go into the kick, go into manage sample, and from there you can replace it with the sample that you just froze. That way you can fade it out and clean it up before you even replace it with, or replace the kick that you currently have with the new kick, or with the kick with the EQ applied. Bicycle for life, yes. How very Dutch of you. This part is a bit mono here. Mainly the synths could definitely use some more stereo with. Am I a cyclist? Yes. Very much so. And skateboarding in my case. Aha, interesting. You definitely don't live in Italy because the streets here aren't paved enough for skateboarding. You're going to kill yourself if you skateboard here. This synth here, this has a nice stereo field. It's nice and wide, right? So it leaves enough space for the kick and bass to sit in the center. I hope you guys wear helmets. For cycling? Nope, not either. Yeah, you wouldn't want to skateboard here. See, like, stereo-wise, this synth is now competing with the kick and bass. It's sitting in the same area. If you're listening on headphones, this will be a very clear effect. On speakers, you don't hear this. That's why I like to judge stereo fields with headphones, actually. It's the only thing that I would recommend headphones over monitors when you're mixing, or speakers when you're mixing. Is the mono stuff really happens here, and the stereo stuff really happens here. Cleanliness. A little bit more fade here towards the end. Also, the bass line could use a bit of stereo. When I say a bit of stereo, I really mean like that they just slightly look like this here, right? As opposed to just like a completely flat line. It tends to change the tone. Whatever stereoizer you're using tends to change the tone of your bass line also. And I've found that like in 95% of the cases, your bass line is just going to sound better tone-wise. Other than that, is there anything else I can think about? I don't think so. Very cool track. I like it. I like the sound. Let me check if there's any more Patreons. Nope. Next up we have Heroic Dose, A minor 140 BPM by Space Rider, also known as Acid. Very nice cover art. Another shout out for the cover art. Look at this. Very cool idea here with the guy standing there in front of the ominous god, whatever this might be.
We know that all drugs are in part shaped by the context in which they're given, but for the psychedelic substances, that's particularly more so.
Really cool idea here, production-wise. What he is doing is as the track opens up with everything that's playing, the formants are shifted upwards in the vocals. That means that the vocal is always a little bit higher in frequency than the rest of the track, and that means that it's always understandable. MB Stereo Winery is good if you have it. I don't have it. M Stereo Spread is the one that I recommend by Melda. Oh no. Oh no. It's not clean. I do like myself a little bit of this square bass. I think this is square bass, isn't it? Overall, I think there's some cool stuff happening. You're accentuating one harmonic in your bass line a lot. I like that sound. What I overall don't like is the 500 Hertz area. This area could be a little bit lower. I think one of the reasons is because there are some harmonics here that... So this is from the bass line. I think if you remove that, especially in the kick, that 500 Hertz area, you get a little bit more punch because it accentuates around 200 Hertz a bit more. Like by carving out 500 Hertz, it doesn't obviously automatically boost 200 Hertz. It just perception-wise gives you a little bit more power in that region.
Today we are discussing psilocybin. Psilocybin is a psychedelic, modified psychedelic. It changes our level.
Do you use any graphical programs? In what way?
Outside.
I mean, I make thumbnails in Paint.net, if that's what you mean by like graphics.
Be heroic,
Kick and bass stereo wave. I said before, a little bit of stereo wave goes a long way on your bass line. Obviously not your kick.
Today we are discussing psilocybin.
I really like this groove though, this is very good.
Psilocybin is a psychedelic.
For image editing, yes. So I use Paint.net for all my thumbnails. It's a free, I think, open source program. Don't quote me on the open source part. And I do moving graphics in After Effects, video editing in Premiere Pro, and sometimes I use Photoshop for very specific tasks. I removed it, but I'll look at it again. It just feels a little bit... I think it might be actually that harmonic now that I'm listening to it more. It's maybe not exactly the 500 hertz, but this harmonic just... It seems to give your kick and bass a little bit of that nasally frequency. The best way I can describe it is... that kind of thing. I don't know if you heard it. Nah, snare. I do agree, the snare is a bit wonky. I think the snare maybe has a little bit too much mid-range left. A little bit too much fundamental. GIMP is cool. Yeah, GIMP is very similar to Paint.net. It's just that Paint.net has some better plugin support, I think. And I use a lot of plugins for the graphical stuff that I do.
Psilocybin is one of many psychedelics. There are things like LSD, DMT, MDMA, while not yet a classic psychedelic.
The snare has a cough.
Psychedelic is a general term.
Once it comes again, we'll have a listen. Arrangement-wise, it's a strange decision that you're not going back to the kick and bass from the first drop, which was rolling. If you wanted to mix this track into a live set, what I would imagine would be handy is that the first and the last drop is rolling kick and bass, so any other rolling kick and bass kind of mixes well with that. Maybe that's not exactly what you're after, I don't know, maybe it even changes later in the outro. Yeah, the snare has a little bit, I think it might be what's causing here. It's hard to pick up in the frequency spectrum here, but it does have like a strong mid-range to it here. I think there it is. That's the snare playing on its own, that mid-range of the snare. I think it's this bit here from the snare. Because I don't see it in here. Yeah, this. You see that little extra bump there? I would try to remove that and just keep the noise component. I think that will fix your snare. GIMP has a lot of potential, hard to use like all Linux things. I have been traumatized by using Linux. We had a... it's gonna be story time with Projector soon. Back when I was in high school, I went to a specialized high school for IT, which is something that they have here in Italy, the Superiore. I went to an ITIS, which is like a technical high school. So I learned programming from a fairly early age. I just turned 16 when I came here, and that's when we started. And when I started, we had this one guy that was like a stereotypical Linux user, in the sense that he wanted everybody to go to their house, uninstall Windows, and install Debian 7, I think. And for anybody that knows Linux, it's not the most friendly software if you're trying to do anything other than write commands. Not like a dig to Linux, but it's just not that used, so programmers just don't support it. And he was like adequate that you could do anything you wanted to do on Linux, which is just not the case. Like there's so many programs, like if you're working in a team, for example, I have edited for other people before. If you're working with other people that have a specific requirement in terms of the way they want to edit, and the program that is required for you to do that edit isn't supporting on, is it supported on Linux, you're flat out of luck. Like something like Premiere Pro, even with the workarounds that exists, with being able to run some Windows apps in Linux, Premiere Pro, it's just not gonna work. Stuff like that. Slightly overweight and with glasses, yes. Exactly. Drove a Fiat Panda, lived on his own. I don't think has ever been married. So exactly that kind of thing. Could you do a brief explainer about what you're looking for in each window? Okay, I look at a whole bunch of different things, right? In the sense that there's no one thing that I'm checking for. But this is the stereo field. I generally use this to see if elements are placed in terms of width properly, and if the whole track isn't randomly panned to the left or the right. I also check the total amount of stereo width that the track has, and if it doesn't exceed, I guess 90 degrees or 180 degrees. I guess this is 180 degrees because this is... No, this is 90 degrees because this is 180 degrees, which means that it's fully out of phase. So they will cancel completely when you sum them to mono. You don't want anything to really go over this halfway point because that means that it's going to start lose a lot of volume when you sum it to mono. So that's this window here. The basic way that you can read this window is that the left channel is displayed here and the right channel is displayed here. And they are summed together. For the display. So anything that is mono will exist on this line. Anything that is stereo will exist on this line. So that's the reason why if the kick and bass is playing, you'll see something that looks like this. Whereas just synths are playing, it will be much more round. Because the kick and bass tends to be a very strong mono component. A very loud mono component. So it's both louder because it covers a bigger area, right? It goes higher and lower. And if the synths are playing, it's more towards the middle here, but it's more spread out because it's more stereo. Here I look at the waveform, and I'm mainly using this to check the cleanliness of the kick and bass, and I'm looking for strange peaks, strange stuff in the waveform that we don't really want in terms of going into a mastering limiter. That is the main consideration here. This is the frequency over time. So you can see here the frequency that it displays. This is the time axis, and this is the intensity, is the loudness. What you're looking for here, if there are any frequencies that are out of place, that shouldn't be there. For example, a lot of low rumble, stuff like that. A lot of the other things. What would be other things? Like, I guess the frequencies of the high end. I tend to focus those a little bit more on this because this is more detailed in exactly showing you the loudness. This is more for frequencies over time. So it tells you if there's frequent. I use this, for example, also to check if vocals have enough space. It's mainly for explainer though. I'm mostly listening. There's a few checks that I'm doing that I cannot hear, like the cleanliness of the kick and bass, where I freeze this waveform here and I just look at the waveform to see if the kick and bass isn't fading into the next note of the kick or the bass, like the transient thing. And then finally this one here, as I said, this is also the frequency, but this is only instantaneous, so it doesn't give you the time access, and therefore it has a lot more detail, and I can see exactly like, oh, your sub bass is half a dB too loud. I could potentially see that on here, whereas on this one it is really hard to see because you're just working with these colors. There's not really a dB scale here, whereas here there's a proper dB readout with, as you can see, all of the numbers that you would ever need for anything. I have to go. Thank you all. You're welcome. I'm glad you liked the feedback. I think he is already gone, but that's okay. I have a friend who is not a fan of panning, but always tries to mix synths in mono. There's a difference between stereo width and stereo panning. What stereo width does is it increases the size of this bubble that you see here. Whereas panning, it kind of moves it like this and like this. Again, you read this as the left channel and this as the right channel. So something that is hard panned right will show up like a diagonal line like this. Something that is hard panned left will show up like a diagonal like this. Stereo panning is different from width, because the width, it still keeps it essentially mono. It just kind of pulls it out into the side of your ears more. I say essentially mono, but it's the exact opposite of mono. It's not panned. It's not going to one ear louder than another ear. It is going to both ears more, but it's going more to the side of your head as opposed to in the center of your head. Again, for stereo width, it's better to listen on headphones, as they're binaural and there's no crossover between the left and the right channel, as there is with speakers. Like, you hear the right speaker with your left ear also, whereas with headphones that's not the case. So when you're listening to it on headphones, you can really hear that the stereo sound exists here and the mono sound exists here, like in the center of your head. It literally sounds like it's coming from in between your ears, whereas the stereo stuff exists here. That's why it's a level of separation. Just like volume, you can have one element be separated by another element by just having it louder. You can have one element be separated by another element by having one be bass frequencies and the other be high frequencies. You can have it separated in time. If they play one after the other, they're obviously separated. And if one is playing right here and another one is playing right here, you also have another level of separation. So that's another way that you can separate elements in a mix, and that's one that people often forget about. And I think is one of the most underused ones. And I think I said it in the last few tracks, that you need to focus more on the stereo wave of your track, right? I think I said it with Cider with some of his leads in his track, that the leads and the kick and bass were both playing completely mono. And that means that they're really layering on top of each other, where you can get a lot more definition by just having some to the sides as well. So that the kick and bass kind of has its own space in the middle of your head, essentially. Okay, next up we have Deepigus with 00048. I think he's using the same naming scheme that I am, which is just numbers, right? I just have the numbers for my track. I think he's doing the same. Can you explain the effect of sounds that are far away? Sounds that are far away are quieter. Unless they are... I guess it depends on if you're simulating a room or not. It tends to be the case that if you're further away in a room from a sound source, that you get a lot more reverb from the sound, like you're picking up a lot more reflections. Because the longer it has to travel, the original sound becomes quieter, and therefore the reflections kind of take over the sound a little bit more. So to get a sound to sound further away, you make it quieter and you give it a bit more reverb. I'm working on this one right now. Let me know what you think. Unmixed, unmastered, not fully arranged. I think it might be too loud. Numbers for the win. Yes. It's so easy. If you don't know what the track name is going to be, too loud, it's too quiet. I won't talk about the kick and bass cleaning yet. What I will say is that your bass is too loud. I think the hats might be too loud. Ah, that may be it. We'll see. What kind of wicked sound design is happening there? If you want something to move in front of you to behind you, how would that work? I'll explain later. I'll listen to the track first. It's just a 3-minute track anyway. The hats are okay. I like the hats. This is what you want. You want that little bump from the high frequencies. In fact, I would say that your track is a bit sub-heavy here. You could have this roll off a little bit less in this area. Might have a little bit more stuff happening here. I know part of the reason is because your track is very empty in here. If you fill this up completely with synths, then that effect is gonna be going away also. And also if you make your bass a little bit quieter, which I think minus 2 dB would benefit your track a little bit, because then the kick is louder. And that's the thing that we dance to, so that's important. Right now, in terms of like the dynamics of your low frequencies, there's not a lot of dynamics happening in the low frequencies. So it's going to be all at the same level. What you kind of want from your low frequencies is that the kick gives a little bit more power, because you can feel it a little bit more in your chest then. When you're on the dance floor, you want obviously the bass line to still have some power. But having that kick 1 or 2 dB, I usually have it 1, 1.5, sometimes 2 dB louder. My kick is 1 to 2 dB louder than my bass line.
This is not a matter of choice.
And again, a little bit of stereo width, especially on the bass line, is really, really nice. It does help a lot. Okay, moving sounds from behind you to in front of you. There are certain tricky... You cannot really do that. In the sense that... oh, wow. We are working with a stereo file, right? We're not working with surround, which is where you have 4 speakers, 2 in front, 2 behind at least. So there you can really play something 3-dimensionally in the stereo field, and even with Atmos you can go much further. You can say like the exact position that you want. We're working with stereo files, so we just have a left and a right channel. There are some really strange tricks that you can do with comb filters, and I think the plugin is called Dear VR Micro. Yeah, this allows you to do 3-dimensional audio in stereo. So you can get an elevation and front, right, back, and left, right? So this allows you to do that 360-degree panner. It has room reflections and all of that stuff. And this is a free plugin. So this can do what you want in terms of placing it from the front to behind you. It is very, very destructive. I've used this before. I don't think I have it currently installed. It is a good plugin for what it does. But it is very destructive. Like, it destroys the original audio file by the filtering that it's using to achieve what we have here. There's some really strange stuff that needs to happen. As you can see, this is like, it works binaurally, so that's left channel, right channel. So with headphones, you don't really hear the effect in normal stereo. So the difference between binaural, which is what headphones are, and stereo is that the left channel in your headphones only goes into your left ear. Whereas on speakers, you hear the left channel in your left ear, and then milliseconds later, the time that it takes to just travel around your head, you hear it in the right ear as well. One of the things that also happens is because it has to travel around your head, there's going to be a slight difference in, I guess, the EQ curve almost, that is going to come into your right ear and the left ear, and obviously the timing. And all of those things combined, we use that to position sounds. And I think that that's what this plugin emulates, but it can only do that for binaural stuff. So left going into left ear, right going into right ear. So that's how you do like placement front, behind you in when you're listening on headphones. I don't think there's a way that you can do that on just stereo. My project names are crap 1, crap 2, shit 1, shit 1, random jam 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Everybody is bad at organizing. Dharmadas is next. I see you're featuring somebody. I hope you have permission and that you read the submission thing. I'm just going to assume that you have. I don't know if you're still in the chat here. It has been a little bit since you last typed. But this is going to be Dharmadas with Alien Alert Protocol featuring Rise Mind. Hello, Greedo. I'm here, bro. Nice, nice. It's all good. Perfect. Some cool kick stuff you're doing here. What I would recommend when you're doing stuff like this with the kick before the actual kick from the drop comes is to turn the kick down by like 3-4 dB at least, so that when the kick plays in the drop it has more impact, it has more power because it then has more volume. The cleanliness check, that's looking all good. Very nice. Subject Ultra, welcome, welcome. Check Discord. I don't know, I did see that somebody messaged, but I don't know if that was you. If not, then check Discord. I think you know what I mean. Don't say anything.
Musical tone.
Here again, you can hear some sounds, some synths being almost completely mono. You should always address for each sound not just the volume and the EQing that you do, but also checking the stereo width of the sound, so the stereo field of the sound.
I like it.
Another is musical tone.
Here again, you can hear the kick, the drop doesn't really have that impact, that power, because the kick is already playing at full volume. Is it me or are some transients not as clear as others? Let's see if I can pause at the right time here. Maybe we can catch a bass line bleeding into... Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah. You see this? Do you hear how some transients aren't as clear as others? I think you didn't clean your kick and bass. I think you just got lucky with the last bass line that we checked. Yeah, your kick is moving all around. Here it's being pushed up slightly, it's pushed down. Also, this is a mess. I don't know what happened here. What you always want to do is resampling. And I think that maybe you got away with it with the first bass line that we heard, but here we really heard, we could hear like the negative implications that it has, in that the transient gets pushed much harder into whatever mastering limiter you're using here. And that causes issues. The transient just doesn't come through as much. Shadow Rage wants to get sued. How to get sued 101. That's a good video idea, actually. It's a nice clickbaity title for a music production video. I can already imagine it. I usually have thumbnails in my head before I make the video. And I can see myself just holding a piece of paper, how to get sued, big text on it, court filing, whatever, as the thumbnail, and then you just have the text next to it with how to get sued and that kind of stuff. And I'm just gonna sit down and talk about copyright, and explain copyright. Very cool production, some attention to details. As I said, the kick loudness is something to address, and mainly the cleanliness of your kick and bass. You almost got away with it too, but I did hear in the later part the transients. Usually you don't hear it, so actually the problem was pretty strong. I think part of the reason why you hear it so well in this track is because you have a sliding bass line, meaning that it's fairly loud towards the part that would fade into the kick, whereas with normal sidetrans it tends to be a little bit more dynamic, so that waveform it kind of goes a little bit lower. The other reason, or the reason why you usually don't hear it, is because this is a problem that gets exaggerated on big PA systems, which is where we really want our music to play, right? As sidetrans producers, we would like to play at festivals and stuff like that. And there, you can suffer from a lack of punch in your transients if you don't take care of this issue. I've done a video on this, how to clean your kick and bass, I think, or is your kick and bass clean, something like that, it's called. It is also addressed in the Ultimate Guide on Kick and Bass. The track that we just listened to, by the way, is this one here, Alien Alert Protocol. It is obviously in my feedback on stream one. We have 2 more tracks to listen to. Nice. Next up, we have another track by that fella, Only If You Have Time, Experimental. Would love to know about fitting the vocals in properly. Played physical bass on this as well. Very cool. Let's see. Best advice for dealing with this, let me just drop you the video and that will explain everything. I don't expect you to listen or to watch the whole 3-hour guide to deal with this. You can. There is a part of the guide that explicitly talks about this, but this video is 12 minutes and it also explains it. It's a little bit lower quality, I know now. This is with the old cam and I think maybe even old microphone setup as well. Hello everybody, welcome back to another... Yes, it sounds terrible. Nowadays my videos sound a lot better. But yeah. This video goes into great detail on what exactly the problem is, how you can detect it, and how you can subsequently make sure that it doesn't happen in your track. There are some other tricks that you can do as well that, if you really want to, allow you to not resample your baseline. But resampling is the easiest way to deal with it. And if you're like, I'm at the point where I know so much about making kick and bass that I can get a kick and bass that sounds processed, that is technically phase shifted, like the phase shift between the harmonic exists, which is the thing that we're actually trying to do with processing. For those that don't know, we're trying to shift some of the harmonics back so that essentially the transient only exists out of the high frequencies and the sub bass comes in a little bit lower so that you get more space for that transient and you can push it a little bit harder. Gives you a lot more click, a lot more power. But what that does is means that that sub bass shift backwards also into the transient of whatever is playing after it. There are methods around it, which was the baseline that I showed before at the beginning of the stream. So again, for those that weren't there, it's from my recent preset pack in Serum here. I have this preset here, which is able to be processed only if you use this knob right. This is the processing that you apply to it, the phase shift that you apply to it, but you don't have to resample it because I'm doing it in the wavetable. Again, if you watch the whole guide on kick and bass, the 3-hour, 20-minute one, that will explain everything. But essentially, the patch allows you to have the benefits of a processed baseline without having to resample, and therefore you can keep it in MIDI. But otherwise, resampling always. Like that should, if you're processing your baseline, which I think everybody is, you should resample. Anyway, that fella with Spectra. Very sudden beginning to the drop. Here as well, as you can see, this isn't resampled, so this is going to have the same kind of issues.
On December the 5th, 1971, at 1:30 a.m., Uri Geller was placed into a state of hypnotic induction.
Experiment would love to know about fitting the vocals in properly.
Was disabled by some invisible power.
Honestly, with the amount of stuff that you're already doing in the mix,
was heard.
Like all of the other things, there's too much stuff happening already for the vocals to be put in here properly.
It was not Uri's voice. It said,
"Here I am. I am ready. Ask."
The focus was on the figure of Uri Geller. Who was he, really? And what did he come here to do? What was his role on planet Earth?
Take good care of him. He is in a very delicate situation. He is the only one for the next 50 years to come. We are going to be very, very far away. Spectra, Spectra, Spectra. That is our spacecraft. There are some books on your planet left by our people. Uri will find in the years to come. Your questions will be answered. Keep them.
If you want to do a track with vocals, I would highly recommend not having a kick and bass in the part where you're doing vocals.
Do not worry. I am sending Uri back to you now. Farewell.
Personally, I have spoken vocals only when the kick and bass is not playing, or if it's just the kick and bass and nothing else.
With the artificial intelligence of the craft now known as Spectra. Get behind the craft, or probe called Spectra.
technically speaking, the vocals are sitting in here well, like they're mixed well. The track is mastered quite loudly for this kind of style to work, if you just want this to be something that you listen to almost like an audiobook. Because I can imagine on the dance floor this is not going to work, these loud vocals. Because nobody's going to be dancing, they're going to be listening to the story.
We first interfered with the human race 20,000 years ago. We came on a planned mission from our own solar galaxy. And our first
but if you want to focus more on the story, then you don't need the dance music part, so I would just remove the kick and bass. And I would have a backing track for this story thing, and then you're focusing fully on the story. It's like you're trying to make both an EDM track and an audiobook at the same time.
However,
and those two things don't generally mix.
Other visitors from other spaces who had been on Earth millions of years earlier. But we found man in much the same animal condition that you see him in today.
When was the last time that you actively tried to upgrade the quality of man's self and of his civilization?
We give advice actually about once every 6,000 years. The last time that we did this was 6,000 years ago to the Egyptians. Our advice is usually given gently and is not too strong, and we do it more for our own purposes than for man's benefit.
Were there other places where you tried to help man by stimulating the process of civilization?
Yes.
Would work for a video game menu or movie intro.
Places.
Yes.
The area that you now call culture.
That would work. In that case, it's mastered too loudly. Like it's all being squashed together at this point, which it really doesn't need this track. This track could benefit. In fact, I would say it would be better if this track was a lot more dynamic.
How does the soul?
As I said, it's trying to be both dance music and an audiobook, and those two things don't really mix. If you want this kind of music,
our computers do not have.
I would take the musical part, just turn it down a bit, and not master this whatsoever in terms of limiting it. This is being squashed right now. Like this is full-on sausage mode.
Your secrecy is related to your principle of non-violation of free will in humans. Why is there to be some revelation now?
Our secrecy has only to do in a very small part with the free will of.
Also, learn what a de-esser is.
It is because we don't want to reveal our intentions.
You can see the S's in the waveform even here.
People. But we cannot afford anymore to land visibly on your planet. It is because of your tendency to panic, to worship, to react abnormally to us.
During the past quarter of a century, there have been many space visitations reported. Are these yours?
Most of these reports by humans are due to hallucinations and aberrations. But some of our units have landed. But most of the reported landings have been from other visitors from space. Some of whom we do not see, but which you can see. They are of different vibrations, different spaces, different velocities.
Yeah, the S sounds are really overpowering in this part.
The other visitors come and go. We stay.
This is better than what you had before, by the way, in giving the vocal space.
Uri knew that he had the capacity for a little bit of...
Do you hear how much clarity the vocal has here?
Everybody has some. Yet there were powers beyond those. The power of some superior intelligence being bestowed.
And now you can also hear the need for de-esser for those very nasty sibilances. That kind of stuff. I have a de-esser on this microphone, by the way.
As being God.
So my voice is being de-essed, and even then it might be a bit too much if I just say yes, it's overcompressed. This is mastered as I said, as a dance track, and seeing as this is partially audiobook, it shouldn't be. Like if you're writing this type of music, your goal is not to have this play in the clubs to make people dance. You should not be focusing on that, and therefore your loudness is a negative. You want it to be dynamic so that the vocal can sit on top of the track. I do really like the idea, though. I do really like these storytelling things. I think I've heard it a few times from you already. And the big thing is you have to remember that you're not making dance music. Even if there's a kick and bass below it, I like the last part the most. What I think would work best is if you just use the last part under the whole track. Because at the end of the day, we're not listening to the music. We're listening to the story at this point, right? If you're just going to have vocals on the whole thing. So at this point, as somebody said, like it's good video game music. In that case, it would be nice to have a little bit of music underneath the person telling the story of what the game is about, almost. That's how I would imagine this track being written. So it doesn't, the music doesn't even need to be upfront. So for that reason, I would remove all of that kind of clutter that was in there in the beginning of the track, like all of the high frequency stuff and all of that stuff. Give the vocals more space frequency wise, but also just volume wise. You not even just removing the mastering and removing the squashing, but just taking the music and turning it down like 4 or 5 dB. If you have some time, this is my side chill project. I attempt to bring psytrance and chill a little bit closer together. More uplifting parts in the chill, more chill party in the faster. Thanks. Okay. Sounds interesting. This is Desert Gate by Flowwolf. This one is tagged #storytelling, so maybe this also has the big vocals in there. We're going to treat it the same way. This reminds me of, do you guys know there's this one guy, I don't remember his name, but there's this guy on YouTube that does trip stimulation or simulation videos. This reminds me of that music. I might be able to find it. I won't play it, but I might be able to find it so that you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can find the right one. This one here, it sounds very similar to the vibe that he has going on in the music. Bassline is very quiet in this one. Kick is very short. So it's like the kick and bass is about to come in. It's like this is still being filtered out. And we're preparing for the drop still, but I'm assuming that this is supposed to be the drop. Even though this is side chill, you still have to remember that this is essentially or quintessentially dance music, right? I saw the word quintessentially in chat, so I stole it. But you need to remember that the kick and the bass is still the two key ingredients for the track. So they do need to have, in the case of the kick, the loudness is, I guess, okay. They could use 1 more dB, the kick. But the bassline needs to be a lot louder. It needs to not match the bassline, but it needs to be 1 or 2 dB below the bassline in terms of loudness. And then the kick needs to be longer so that it has a sub bass to it. Do I like Daft Punk? I never listened to Daft Punk. I think we talked about music before. And as I said, I only listen to psytrance and occasionally metal. And I showed my playlist for that. Everybody calls me Giorgio. Giovanni Giorgio. My name is Giovanni Giorgio, but everybody calls me Giorgio. Thanks for the advice. Baseline has to be improved. Hardest part for me. Kick 2. Both of them are hard. Again, I'll just recommend you my kick and bass tutorial. Or the guide, I should say. It is 3 hours long for a reason. It is a difficult subject to explain, but the ultimate guide goes over everything, and from there you should be able to deduce how to apply it to Sybient. Other than that, I would say the track is being a little bit boring. I mean, it's not the worst, because this is Sybient, you can be really slow with the progression and that stuff. But I feel like it's been the same throughout the whole track up until this point. I would love to hear some elements disappear and at some point have a fill and then some, like, Stranger Things ARP coming in. Something like that, right? Just something that is slightly different. Finally some bass frequencies. I'll go through that tutorial series. It's not a series, mate. It's literally one video that is 3 hours long. It was hell to record, but it's a great video. Even worse to edit. It took 3 days of non-stop work to edit that video. Not 3, 2 days. And it wasn't fully non-stop. Like, I started editing it on the first day at around, I would say, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I went to bed at 2. I woke up the next day and then I did the whole day editing it, and then at the end of the day it was done. At 2 o'clock at night. And I wake up at like 9:30ish. So you get an idea how long that took. It was a terrible edit though. There were so much things that... It's really hard because I did that video in stages. Obviously I couldn't record it in one go because it was like 7-8 hours of footage, and you can imagine a recording session of 7 hours is way too long for anything. By the way, I do want to say, great track. I like all of the ideas in it. I like the theming in it. I said a couple of things. I think mainly the kick and bass is the big issue, and the overall lack of change throughout the track. So, really cool track. With that, we have reached the end of all of the tracks for today. So I'm actually going to stop for today. But yeah, that video, yeah, that took very long to make. It was a terrible project to make. I am happy that I did it. It is getting good views, so that's always nice. I mean, I knew it was gonna get great views. That kind of video is just always going to do well. Right, because it mentions kick and bass, and Psytrance producers only care about one thing, and that is the kick and the bass. I know for a fact that that is a thing that is happening. Like, Psytrance producers, if you put kick and bass in the title, you'll get 1.5 to 2 times the views. Do you like Current? I haven't used it. I haven't tested it. They haven't approached me for sponsorship, so I don't have it. I would love to have it. If the guys reach out at some point, I would love to try it. And see how it works and see if it's for me, but I don't have it, so I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna end it here for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I hope you guys enjoyed the feedback and that it was useful as always. There will be another feedback stream next week, and then there won't be a feedback stream for 3 weeks after that. So next week will be the last feedback stream of the year. And then I'll see you guys in the next year. So we'll see you guys at least on the next feedback stream. Hopefully in between as well. I might have time to do 1 or 2 more live streams. But I'll have to figure that out later. I have to record a lot in advance because, as I said, I'm going to go away for like 3.5 weeks. So I need to do a lot of recording and preparation and stuff like that. I have maybe like 10 videos that I want to make in advance, so that I just keep my regular upload schedule and you guys don't miss anything over the holidays. The holidays usually are some of the biggest events for me because people tend to buy stuff when the holidays happen. I'll also be running a sale on my Gumroad for anybody that's wondering. I'm gonna do a Christmas sale. I missed out on the Black Friday sale because I'm an idiot and I didn't mark it in my calendar. So I completely forgot that was a thing and that I would need to capitalize on it. So I'm going to do I think 30% off holiday sale. I think I'll start on Christmas and then I'll leave the sale running until like maybe the 5th, 6th of January, something like that. I was hoping that I had the time to make another product for that, another Vital pack, but I just don't have the time, so that will have to wait for another time. Maybe early next year I'll have another product out. But yeah, that's going to be it. See you guys next time.